Welcome to this episode of Unraveling Adoption, an intentional space to delve into adoption's complexities together. I'm Beth Syverson. I'm an adoptive mom of a courageous and committed young adult son, Joey, who is on his healing path. I'm walking beside him while working on my own personal growth and healing. Joey and I are committed to helping anyone impacted by adoption, and we want to help the general public understand adoption's complexities better too. I'm also a certified coach, helping seekers who want to move their lives forward. Well, listeners, every once in a while you hear a story of resilience and courage that kind of blows your socks off. Well, today's guest, Ron Jenkins, had a really rough childhood as a fostered youth and an adoptee, but he's transformed his challenges into service for others and his own personal growth. I think he will blow your socks off and inspire you to do your own work. That said, this episode has some pretty serious conversations about some violent situations and some sexual abuse, and it's just a pretty deep and intense episode. So it might not be great if you are struggling yourself with such things or if you have younger ears listening. So just wanted to give you a heads up there. I met Ron at a recent event in LA put on by Jeanette Yoff from the Celia Center. Ron and I struck up a conversation, and I knew I wanted to amplify his voice and share him with you all. So welcome to Unraveling Adoption, Ron. I'm so glad to know you and glad you're here.
Good morning, Beth. Thank you for having me on Unraveling Adoption. I love that title, by the way.
Yeah, let's unravel it. Let's figure out what's under it all, right?
Yeah, we're peeling the onions back, right?
Yep. There's so much complexity. It's not just a good or bad, right? It's like many layers, so many layers. Well, whenever I have adoptees on the show, I always start by having them share whatever parts of their adoption story they want to share. So what parts would you like to share with us?
Well, first of all, whatever I share, I hope that it's inspiring to your listeners. I think that we share a common space here and a specific space here. And I think our stories need to be told. And I think they need to be heard by those who are in our spaces. So thank you for giving us this platform.
Definitely.
My story began when my mother passed away. My mother passed away when I was 2 years old.
So sorry.
I had two other brothers and another sister. And obviously we were forced into the foster care system. I was in the foster care system from probably age 2 to maybe 7 or 8.
Okay. Oof.
And then I was adopted by a lady who shared a friendship with my mother.
Oh, okay.
Yes, this was supposed to be a situation that was beneficial for our well-being. And unfortunately, it didn't turn out like that. The lady that adopted me, my other brothers, not my sister because she was older, she went to another situation.
Okay.
But she adopted me and my two brothers, and she chose to use the funds that we were getting from the federal and state government to buy drugs, to sell drugs. Now, I guess her theory was more money makes a better situation, but unfortunately, it didn't happen like that.
Oh, sounds really rough.
As a result of that, I had 4 brothers killed before I was 23 years old. They were all in some kind of way associated with drug use.
Oh my gosh. Now, wait a second. Your adoptive mom also had other adopted kids, not just your two biological brothers?
Yes, there were other kids adopted into that situation down the road.
Okay. How many kids did she have altogether? Do you know?
Oh, wow. Let me see. So it's 3 of us, probably about 8 of us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a cottage industry she had there going.
Yeah, she did.
Like a business. Oh,
right. Exactly. That's a good word for it, a business. Yes.
So sorry.
And, speaking of it as a business, the social worker who approved these adoptions would be at our house on Friday nights, partying and drinking and listening to music. I didn't know this back then, but, I'm thinking this was a sort of an adoption ring, where she was approving these adoptions and my foster mom was getting the monies and she was buying drugs to make more money. But the results of that was devastating on the family,
Oh, yeah.
including her own biological daughter was addicted to crack cocaine
Mm.
most of her middle-aged life, and she served 5 years in state prison for strong arm robbery to support her habit.
Oh my gosh. Did your adoptive mom ever get in trouble or did justice ever come to her?
No, you know what? There were run-ins with law enforcement, but she never got in trouble. I remember one time there was this lady who kind of like took the rap for her. I think the police had come into the house and they did a raid and they found drugs, and another lady took the rap for her and did go to jail. Yes.
Whoa, something happened there. Woo wee.
Yeah.
Do you think people looked at her and said, "Oh, she's taking care of all these children. What a nice person she is." Do you think that affected law enforcement and the social workers, or was it just something else or luck?
I think that maybe people who didn't know thought that she was doing a great job, you know. As a matter of fact, I'm glad you bring that up. Like, it's something that I've struggled with in the past and something that I still struggle with today. It's like, you know, why did she create this situation where it looked like it was supposed to be helpful,
Yeah.
but yet it was ruining the lives of kids?
Yeah.
Innocent kids, you know.
Yeah.
We didn't ask to be in this situation,
Right.
but we were forced to have to deal with the consequences of
That's
it.
right.
Not only the drug use, but there was a lot of violence. There was a lot of aggressive behavior.
Mm-hmm.
There was an incident where our house got robbed for drugs,
Mm.
and the gentleman who robbed our house put a gun to a 2-year-old baby's head looking for drugs.
Oh
And
my
I heard
God.
my little sister scream, and I got up and ran in there, and the guy ran right by me with a gun in his hand.
Oh my God, that's so traumatizing. Yeah, once you bring drugs into a situation, it just invites all sorts of other chaos and violence and abuse and oh, terrible, terrible, terrible. I'm so sorry you went through all that.
You're exactly right. There was another situation where our house was surrounded with Doberman pinchers and Uzi shotguns because
Ugh.
her buyer got into a dispute. And as you just stated, you know, when you involve drugs into a situation, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yep.
And I could just remember us having to lay under our beds while they were trying to work this situation out. And thank God it worked out. But
Golly.
yeah, some very fearful moments
Yes.
as a child. And I can look back on my journey and see where that fear was instilled in me
Yeah.
in certain situations in my life. I didn't know it, but yes, that situation took a lot out of who we were supposed to be or who we were as people.
Oh, yeah. Well, and you're a kid, you don't know the difference.
Yeah.
You don't know that some kids have no guns in their house ever. Or
You know, that's a very interesting point, and I'm an example of that. I didn't know that my situation was any different than any other kids.
yeah,
You're conditioned to the environment that you're brought up in.
that's right. You don't know the difference.
And that's why so many kids end up incarcerated or end up on drugs or using drugs or making decisions that's not beneficial to their life, because just as a kid that grows up in a healthy household, learns healthy behaviors,
Mhm.
grows up to be a healthy adult, kids who grow up in unhealthy environments grow up to be unhealthy people.
For sure.
I guess the phrase hurt people, you
Yeah,
know.
it's understandable. And, those kids that get tangled up in that, I don't have judgment toward the kids. I mean, it's a practically impossible situation. Now, did you get wrapped up in drugs or gangs and violence and all that? Or how did you manage yourself?
Because I grew up in South LA, it was really hard to avoid being in some type of association with gangs.
Mm-hmm.
I was never officially jumped into a gang or decided to be in a gang. However, I did have close friends
Mm-hmm.
that were gang members.
Sure.
And I hung out with them, but I never did anything to benefit that gang,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what gangs are for. Gangs are established for benefit, whether it's money, drugs, those sort of things.
Mm-hmm.
I knew better.
Mm.
I knew that when it was time for them to do the bad stuff, it was time for me to go.
Okay.
And I'll just relate that experience to when I was probably 11. I had an older brother who had decided that he wanted to join the gangs.
Mm.
And I think he was involved in a shooting. And when he was 15, the police raided our house at like 2 a.m. in the morning. They handcuffed him and took him to jail, and I didn't see him for 5 years. So
Oof.
I would say that probably had an effect on the decisions that I was going to make
Yeah.
in terms of involving myself in the type of behavior that would place me,
Yeah.
in an incarcerated situation.
Yeah, that was at a crucial age too. You were 11.
Hmm.
So you're starting to create your own identity and go, that does not look like a good idea.
Right.
So that was very smart of you.
There was another incident that happened at 11. One of my brothers, he was killed.
Mm.
One night he left to go to the store and he didn't return. And that next morning, my foster mother woke me up and said, "Hey, he didn't come home. We have to go look for him," at 2 a.m. in the morning. And I was sleepy and I was tired. And she was like, "What stores do you guys go to?" This was something that he would do frequently. He would get up in the middle of the night and go get milk and cookies or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I was tired and sleepy, and she said, "Let's get in the car. We have to go look for him." And we went to 3 different liquor stores that we frequented. There was a fourth one that we didn't go to because it was far away and I was sleepy and I was tired. And I didn't even mention going to that one. And unfortunately, that next morning, my mother got a call from someone
Mm.
about an incident that happened behind this other liquor store that we didn't visit.
Oh, wow.
And we got in the car and went down there. And yes, that's where we found his body.
Mm.
He had been killed by being stabbed over 50 times with an ice
Oh,
pick.
what? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was a very gruesome sight.
Whoa.
I think he might have got mixed up with the wrong people and they forced him to rob this liquor store and
Mm.
he got stuck in the window and they couldn't get him out.
Ugh.
So he wouldn't tell on them. They stabbed him in his back 50 times with an ice pick.
Ugh.
And as an 11-year-old, I saw him deceased hanging out this window.
Oh my
Yeah,
God, Ron. That's a
yeah.
horrible, horrible, tragic story. Goodness. Well, that will certainly impact an 11-year-old or any age person. But at that precious age where you're trying to figure out who you are and trying to make sense of all this around you, do you remember consciously deciding, okay, this is not going to be me? Do you remember kind of a decision at that point?
I remember being fearful. I remember being timid as a kid.
Mm.
I remember wanting no problems with anyone,
Yeah.
and to this day, I thank God for giving me that balance, as a part of my DNA in terms of who I am and what I stand for.
Mhm.
I really, really learned at a young age to protect myself,
Okay.
to be an advocate for myself. And I think back and I couldn't tell you why, but I knew that if things were going to go right for me, I had to be in control of that.
Yeah.
I had to take the steps to make that happen.
Yeah.
I was a shy, quiet kid. I didn't say very much, but I saw everything.
Yeah. You're just watching. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Right, right. I was so trusted by my foster mom that she would give me $400 or $500 from the drug money to hold.
Whoa.
Yes.
Whoa.
Now, when I turned 13 and I figured this out and I understood what my role was, I refused to be that person anymore.
Yeah, that was putting you in danger. Yeah.
Yes, it created a tension in our relationship because I
Wow.
specifically told her, no, I'm not holding drug money anymore.
Yeah, that must have felt like it weighed 100 pounds in your pocket.
No, because I didn't really have any idea at first
Mm.
about what it was. To
Mm.
me, I was the trusted kid. I was the good kid,
Oh, okay.
you know.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
And then when I learned what this money was from and what it was for,
Yeah. Okay.
then I had a chance to make a decision. And how I learned is that one night I woke up in the middle of the night and my foster mom and her drug friends, they were counting drugs and money on the table.
Oof.
And seeing this and seeing it on TV gave me an understanding of what was going on.
Yeah.
So obviously I didn't burst in there and say, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
I just creeped back into my room and went to bed. And then the next time she presented me with a situation to hold money, I told her, no, I wasn't going to do that because I understood, what was going on and I didn't want to be a part of it.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
How long did you stay in touch with you sometimes call her your foster mom, but she did adopt you, right?
Yes, she did.
Okay. So for how long did you stay in touch with her? And is she still alive? Are you still in touch?
Well, I'll just go back to how everything took a turn.
Okay.
So when I was probably 13, some friends and I, we were messing around with a BB gun in my backyard, and we ended up shooting out a window across the street from where I live.
Okay.
And the guy who lived there came to my house and he told me that I was responsible for shooting out his window. And I told him, well, I didn't shoot out the window. And he says, well, you didn't, but you were with the guys who did it
Mhm.
and you're going to pay for it. He was a contractor. So he told me to come to his house that Saturday morning to pay off this debt.
Okay.
And we went to this job site and he was going to do a new bathroom remodel and he needed to break down some walls and things. So he gave me a sledgehammer and he said, hey, I'm going to go get tools and I need this wall down and that wall down. And when I get back,
Okay.
and in my mind, I was not keen on this thing. So I'm thinking, if I break down this wall, this whole house gonna fall down.
Yeah. Yeah. Really.
Yeah. But anyway, I did it and he came back and the wood was stacked up to the side and he was like, oh, wow.
Okay.
And from that day on, he became a mentor,
Wow.
even to the point where the lady's house that we was working on, she had known him for a long time. And she said, his name was Mr. Burnett. And she said, Mr. Burnett, I've known you a long time and I know you don't have a son this age. Who is this young man?
Oh.
And he told her, this is my son.
Oh.
And that right there just changed the elevation, of my life.
Yeah.
Here's this guy not even knowing that I needed a father, that I needed a mentor, that I needed somebody. And he showed up and became a father figure. His wife became a parent as well, and she would help me with my homework.
Mm.
And then shortly after, I started playing sports when I got in high school.
Mm-hmm.
After 3 years of being a bad football player, I continued to play into junior college. And then 2 years later, I was getting a football scholarship to
Oh,
Fresno State University.
nice.
And I just want to go back to an incident that happened when I was 13. My foster mom was very violent, and so was her biological daughter, the one who I explained to you that spent time in prison. Something happened in the house, and she hit me across my face with a bare hand, something that had happened many times before.
Mm.
And she hit me so hard, all I could do was fall to the ground and
Oof.
pray and ask God to get me out of this situation.
Mm.
And here I was 7 years later, this situation happening, me getting this football scholarship
Wow.
was the first time that I was able to leave that situation
Oh,
and
okay.
kind of make do for myself. And I really feel like God heard my prayers
Mm.
and gave me room and board and opportunity and an education to change my life. And that's been what it's been ever since. And I'm
Wow.
so grateful, for this guy coming into my life and seeing that, I needed somebody other than what I had.
Yeah, because he could have come at you with anger or violence. You did wreck his window or your friend did or whatever. I mean, he could have come at you so many different ways, but he came at you with wanting to teach and help you take accountability. He didn't just say, oh, well, it's okay, whatever. He taught you in that moment.
You're exactly right. And he told me that. He goes, I'm not gonna call the police on you. I'm gonna help you with this situation.
Mhm.
And I think his thinking was that, a lot of kids in that neighborhood were being, subjected to police violence
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
drugs, gangs, and things like that. And he felt like he had an opportunity to show me something different.
Nice.
And he did that. And it's become a part of me and why I've chosen the path that I've chosen as well.
Yeah.
He kind of planted that seed, and it's grown.
He paid it forward and now you're paying it forward. I know you do a lot of work to help other at-risk youth. Tell us about what you're doing.
Well, currently I'm retired, but I spent 31 years working for Department of Juvenile Justice.
Mm.
When I graduated from Fresno State with a degree in social work, I took a job at Fresno County Juvenile Hall as a counselor.
Mm.
I worked with kids there who had come from situations like mine. When I was in college, I originally wanted to be a social worker
Mhm.
because I wanted to help kids that come from situations like mine. But then I did an internship with Fresno County Probation Department.
Mm.
And not only was the pay better, but I felt like these kids were kids that I could get to and I could mentor by sharing my experiences and sharing my story.
Yeah.
These kids were the same type of kids that came out of situations that I came out of.
Mhm.
So I chose that career and it has been very beneficial. I've been involved with helping kids, make changes to their lives
Mhm.
that are beneficial to this day.
Nice.
I've done Big Brothers, Big Sisters. I've been a youth advocate. I'm a football coach now.
Mhm.
Sport in general has been very beneficial in my life. The
Yes.
discipline, the structure, all those things that I didn't get in
Mhm.
that home growing up were provided to me through sports.
Mhm.
And the coaches that I came in contact with who showed an interest in me as a young man.
So you're doing that now with other kids that might be, I bet you kind of gravitate towards the ones that are struggling or the ones that are having rough family situations.
Yes, I want the kid sitting in the back of the room who isn't saying much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You find them.
The kid who has bottled up emotions and hasn't quite learned how to navigate those emotions.
Yeah.
I want to talk to that kid. I want to give him a voice.
Yes.
I want to share my story with that kid and try to change some of those things that are insecure to them or that doesn't give them the power to speak up and advocate for themselves.
Yes, you help them, I'm sure. That's amazing. If you were a teenager again on some football team, or if you were struggling, an at-risk youth now that you know what you know now, what would you do different?
You know what? I'm blessed to be able to say that I would do everything that I did the same way. And the reason why I say that is because, and I think I mentioned this earlier, I protected myself. I really did. I avoided those things that I knew would get me in trouble.
Yep.
Whether it was joining the gang, doing drugs, all of these things sat right in front of me. And I had a choice to make. But I made the choice to stay away from those things.
Yeah.
And I think the choice that I made proved to be the difference in my life because all my brothers chose to either be involved in drugs and gangs. And they're not here today because of those decisions.
Oof.
So I am happy that I was able to differentiate between what was good for me and what was bad for me. And I think a lot of kids have a problem with that because number one, it's either peer pressure or they just don't have the strength or they don't have what it takes to make decisions that's conducive to good things happening in their life. And we are responsible for what happens to us to a certain degree by the decisions we make or the choices we make. And we have to be self-advocates. Nobody knows what we want more than we do. And we have to break those trust issues that we've got from our environments, whether we were foster kids, adopted. We have to break those trust issues. And how we do that is that we seek people who are invested in our growth, which would be teachers, pastors, therapists, counselors, those people that have a genuine concern for your well-being. We have to trust those people and reach out to them and understand that they have resources and tools that we need to make it through our tough times. And I see a lot of times kids that come from foster situations or adoption situations, we don't quite have that trust. And the only way we're going to get it is if we reach back to those people who are reaching towards us.
Yeah, it takes a bit of discernment, doesn't it, to know which the good adults are, which football coach is on my side, and which one, there are some adults in the community that would try to prey on kids like that are at risk. So I suppose that kid would have to have some discernment and listen to their body or listen to their gut.
Right.
Like, okay, is this person on my side or are they trying to hurt me?
I think the key is just to listen.
Okay.
Listen, and you'll get an idea of who's trying to help you and who's trying to get over on you. That's one thing about us. We have this sense. We can sense people that are not good for us. And we can sense those that are genuine in who they are. But sometimes we choose not to trust any. That's the thing that we need to focus on. We need to learn how to trust somebody. No one's made it in this world without trusting somebody.
It's so tough for people who are adopted or fostered because, your original parents broke that trust for you.
Right.
And so
Exactly.
it's really hard to overcome. And I suppose there's a bit of, you have to just trust yourself
Right.
at a certain point and value yourself a little bit, at least to start, and know that you are worthy to have a good life. I know, watching my son and some other adult adoptees I know, there is a sense of, well, I'm not worth anything anyway, so I might as well just kind of self-destruct here. But there has to be some sort of grabbing on to some sort of lifeline within yourself. And I'm not sure how to get people to do that, but it seems like you did.
Well, it's a tough road.
Yeah.
I was in therapy one time and the therapist told me, Ron, he says, you deserve any and everything that everybody else deserves.
Aww.
And I was like, wow, no one's ever told me that. No one's ever told me that
Yeah,
before.
really? Wow.
And I stand here today and I say, you deserve everything that everybody else deserves or has gotten.
Yeah, definitely.
How you get there is to believe that and then to put a plan of action in place to receive it.
Yeah.
We're no different than the kid who grows up in a healthy family who is treated fair and gets everything that they need to survive. We're no different than that kid. We just came about it a different way.
Yeah.
But it does not say we don't deserve everything that they have.
Absolutely.
Now, our road is a little different, but the road is for us.
Yes.
And how we get on that road is we make a conscious decision to seek out resources to help us get on that path.
I love that, because I see people that are at risk and struggling, they just sort of let life kind of throw them around. It takes a bit of that self-advocacy, and I don't know how to wake that up in people, but you seem to have figured out that key.
I think that's the trauma speaking right there.
Yeah, yep, for sure.
Trauma will make you believe that if you were abused in your home, then when you choose relationships, those relationships are supposed to be abusive as well.
Yeah, you just go seek out what you just had. Yep, for sure.
If you were nurtured and loved in your home, then you're going to seek out nurturing and loving relationships.
Yeah, yeah.
If you were physically abused, then you're going to seek out relationships, or you're going to think that that's okay.
Yeah.
But that's the trauma speaking.
Yes.
And we have to work through therapy to break those trauma bonds.
Yes.
And while we're talking about this, I want to talk about therapy, because sometimes we as men don't think that we need therapy, or we think that we're macho and we're big and we're bad. I'm going to tell you something. I didn't really seek therapy until really late in my life. And it is the best thing that has ever happened to me in terms of finding out not necessarily who I am, but what things happened to me that made me who I am.
Yeah.
Whether there were things in my childhood that triggered me as an adult, that triggered me in relationships. And let's keep in mind, I grew up in a very violent home with a very violent female as a caretaker or mother. And I didn't know that that was going to affect my relationship with women throughout my life. I didn't know that.
Sure.
But in understanding that I've gone through 2 divorces, at some point you have to ask yourself, where's the problem? Where is it coming from? And is it me?
Sure.
Is it me?
What part of it is my own to deal with? Yeah.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with asking, is it me? And then finding out the answers. The problem comes when you say, no, it's not me. It's not me. But yet these things continually happening in your life. And then you don't seek help for them. And then one day you're sitting in a dark room by yourself with nobody there and you don't know why. So seeking therapy has taught me that there was some trust issues that I had with women coming out of this situation where my foster mom put a knife to my throat and told me she'd kill me because I lost some money. Or my abusive sister slapping me across the face. Early on, a part of that was I thought that was okay. I thought, okay, this happened, but let's go to the next day.
Oh, yeah. Brush that under the rug.
And I learned through therapy that I didn't become abusive or anything like that. But at the same time, the relationships that I was in, it was like do I really trust this relationship fully?
Oh, okay.
And if
Sure.
I don't trust this relationship fully, am I really giving all of who I am?
Sure. You're holding back.
Right. The answer was no, I was not.
Yeah, that's totally understandable.
And I learned that through therapy. But when we have these traumas, we have to seek out resources and tools that we can grow in those areas.
Yes.
Because if you get left behind, then you're always left behind.
Mm-hmm.
When you've gone through traumatic situations, you have to catch up.
Yeah.
So I worked in the correctional facility, and it was constantly said that a kid who was locked up at 15 turned 25, but yet a lot of him was 15
Oh, yeah, for sure.
because that's when his growth stopped.
Sure.
So he's behind and he has to catch up,
Yeah.
especially in his emotional maturity.
Sure. Yeah. I think the same thing when people start using drugs, their emotional growth stops. You know, if there's any sort of interruption of adolescence, okay, well, you're not growing up anymore. You're not like going to the school dances and you're not dealing with peers and doing regular fun things. You're dealing with much bigger issues. And so your emotional growth kind of puts a pause. And eventually, yeah, you got to deal with that.
Yes, it's a negative impact on those developmental stages that we all go through.
Yeah.
We all go through developmental stages. And when you have these things that happen, whether it's trauma, drug, or situations, that are negative, yes, there's a stop in those
Yep.
growth
Yeah.
stages. Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think that it's important that I share my experiences with sexual abuse. When I was 10 years old, I was sexually abused by a babysitter. And then when I was a little bit older, I was sexually abused by a tutor,
Oh, man.
both female.
Oh, wow.
And these feelings had been suppressed or they had been not given enough attention. As a matter of fact, the first time I was abused, my foster mom ended up walking in on the situation.
Oh, my gosh.
And I can remember we were driving somewhere in the car and she blamed me.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
no. So sorry.
But I bring those situations up because I went through life not really understanding what happened to me in those situations.
Yep. You probably thought it was true. It was your fault, especially if you had a mother telling you it was your fault.
I don't know if I bought that.
Oh, okay. Oh, good.
I'll just tell you, the first time it happened with my babysitter, who was 15 years old and I was 10, it was presented to me as a game.
Oh.
You know, it was a game we were playing. So to me, it was a game. And then the second situation, there was a party at my house and I was in bed and this person comes and they're going to spend a night and they're getting in my bed. And the next thing I know, they're telling me and asking me to do things.
Oh, wow.
But I bring this up because I thought that this had no bearing on me, obviously, because, when you're that young, it's happening and you don't understand why the manipulation and all of that plays into those things. So when I'm older and I get into relationships, as I stated, I was divorced twice or a part of a divorce twice. The first situation in which my divorce happened, we were young and it just kind of split up. But then the second situation, I started to have some feelings about my place in that relationship. And now that I've gone through counseling, those feelings were directly related to the abuses that I had experienced as a kid.
And hadn't quite dealt with yet.
I'm going to just be specific about it. For instance, when you're abused, your sexual behaviors or whatever are distorted in terms of what should be normal and what's not normal. But I always hated for women to be aggressive towards me because those situations were aggressive towards me. So that kind of played a role in how I was viewed in that way. And then down the road, incident happened at my job site where a supervisor was sexually harassing me. And, when it's a male being sexually harassed, it's hard for us to go say, hey, I'm being sexually harassed because then everybody's like, well, you're the first person who doesn't like that.
Yeah, lucky you.
You're the
Yeah.
first male who doesn't like that.
Mm,
But what that did was it triggered
sure.
what happened to me as a
Sure.
child.
Sure. Sure. Ugh.
And the reason why it triggered me was because when I tried to report it, I was viewed as the problem.
Oh, shoot.
And I ended up falling into some depression over that.
Sure.
And I had to get back into therapy,
Hmm.
but only this time I had to deal specifically with my sexual abuse
Oh, okay. Yeah.
as a child.
Yeah. It comes around until you deal with it, right? It keeps
Yes,
knocking on the door
yes.
until you deal with it.
And these
Mm.
these were things that I didn't even know existed.
Oh, okay.
I just want to say that if you're a guy and you've been sexually abused either by a male or female, then there's some things inside you that you need to deal with.
Yep.
And if you just take a look at your past, take a look at your track record, and see the situations that you've been involved in with either male or female
Hmm.
that have not turned out right, I think you
Hmm.
need to look to those abusive situations and get therapy and find out what you can do
Yeah.
to correct some of those inconsistencies in who you are.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah,
Yeah.
therapy is really, really super important because it'll just keep coming back around and around and around till you really deal with it and uncover it, unravel it.
Right. Having worked in the anti-human trafficking space, I'm led to believe that a lot of the guys that are the traffickers, they've been involved in abusive
Yeah.
relationships in their past, whether it was with the mother or the father, or they were the victims themselves,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know.
I agree. I think it just continues until somebody says no more, like you did.
Right.
Somebody has to say, stop. We're not doing this anymore. We're stopping this legacy.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that the important thing to remember is that first we have to ask ourselves, what situations have we been involved in that may impact who we are? And if those situations are not good, then yes, you need to seek therapy or some type of treatment
Yeah.
to deal with those things. Don't think that it's not affecting you when you see all these relationships around you are falling apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
It comes out sideways sometimes if you don't deal with it directly, right?
Yes, and the worst thing you can do is go through life blaming everybody else for something that you may have involvement in.
Yeah, the blaming doesn't help anybody either. Yeah, you're a great example of a path that people can take out of all that abuse. And you found healing and you found a way out and you're helping other people. So this is great.
Not only have I found healing and a way out, but I found strength in that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how strong I was until, I got into therapy and started to understand all the things that I've overcome.
Wow. Yeah.
Therapy has been a blessing to me, both conventional and medication therapy. When I was going through depression, I had to rely on medication therapy to stabilize me.
Sure.
I'm not on any of that now, but it allowed me to get back to normalcy and
Yeah.
understand where I was and who I needed to be. And also
Yeah.
faith in a higher power. That's something that's extremely important as well, that you find a faith base as well. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody find what works for yourself. It may be something different than what you grew up with, but find something bigger than yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. And I agree about the medication too, that sometimes medication is necessary for the short term to help you get your feet on the ground so you can work through your stuff.
I think people think that when you choose medication therapy, it's something that you have to do for the rest of your life. No, that's not the
No,
case. Sometimes you need medication therapy to work you through a period
yeah.
to where you can get back to some normalcy. Because the big picture is that your brain chemicals are off.
Yeah.
And that's what's making you feel lonely and lost and all these kind of things.
Yeah.
And the medication therapy allows you to balance everything out, thus allowing you, well, for me, allowed me to see what my true reality was.
Yep.
Again,
Yeah.
I had reality, then I went out, and then I had to find out what it was again.
Go deeper. Yep.
And medication therapy allowed me to reconnect with what my true reality was.
Taking off those layers like we were talking about before. Yep.
Exactly. Unraveling things.
Totally. Well, your story is very impactful. You have really God, your childhood was really, really tough. And you are a beacon standing out for other people that have had traumatic childhoods or difficult things or separations from their parents. And you're saying you can survive this, you can even thrive, and you can turn it around and help other people. So, gosh, I really admire what you're doing. I admire that core of who you are, that cared about yourself enough to get yourself to safety. And bravo. And thank you for all the work you're doing in the community. Is there any last words or anything else that you wanted to say before we close up?
Yes, I just want to pitch a book. It's called Runaway Girl, and it's by Carissa Phelps. She's the young lady who I worked with when I was working at juvenile hall. She was a runaway that was forced into prostitution or human trafficking. Mm-hmm. And she's now a world-renowned lawyer in that field. Mm. If there's anyone out there who's struggling in that area, this book called Runaway Girl would be a great book to read to get some inspiration for how to come out of that. And you can also go to runawaygirl.com if you have any questions in that area. Other things, to my brothers, to my male friends out there, hey, seek counseling, seek therapy. I guarantee there's something for you in that space. And I just want to thank you, Beth, for allowing me to share my story. And I hope that it inspires somebody that I probably never will meet.
Yes.
And if anybody has any questions, you want to talk, I'm open for mentorship. I'm open for friendship. Please use me as a resource.
That's so great. How could people get a hold of you? What's the best way?
Well, my email is rongolf6807@gmail.com.
Okay. I'll put that in the show notes along with runawaygirl.com and the book. And there's also, I'll put those videos you sent me with you and Carissa and the expose they did about you at Fresno State.
Right.
I'll put some of those short videos in there, and go ahead and make contact with Ron. He's amazing. And if anyone wants to send comments back, we also love that.
One more thing. There's currently a movie being written on my life.
Really?
And it's going to be due out probably in the next year or two.
Ooh.
I can't give away the title, but it's coming.
Oh my gosh. Okay. As soon as it's out, you let me know and I'll update our audience with that. And I'll put the updated link in the show notes and things like that. That sounds amazing.
Yes.
Wow. Is it a full-length documentary or a short film? Or
we're looking at big screen, yes.
Wow. How exciting.
Yes.
Do you need any support for that? Or?
Oh, of course. I need a lot of support.
Okay. If people want to donate money, they could donate money to the project?
When we get to that stage, yes.
Okay. So just email you.
Yes.
Well, and we'll definitely help spread the word and just let us know how we can help when that comes out. Your story definitely needs to be heard far and wide.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ron. Thanks for coming on. I'm so glad I met you at the Celia Center event, and we'll continue collaborating and helping others as much as we can.
I am so excited about this, and I'm glad that we could find each other at that event and share some conversation. And I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity to be on Unraveling Podcast. It's amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome, Ron. Thank you. Thank you very much. Make sure and go check out all of Ron's resources. And while you're on the internet, go look up unravelingadoption.com. We have lots of events and lots of free resources on our website. So check out all that we have there. I also wanted to remind you, we really appreciate it whenever you can review our podcast on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And also our book that we have out called Adoption and Suicidality. It could use a little more love on Amazon and Goodreads if you would like to either rate and review it on either of those platforms. We really appreciate all of your support. Those reviews do go a long way to helping others be able to find us. Thank you all for listening to this episode. Make sure and share it with somebody that you know that would love to hear Ron's story or who might need to be inspired by his story. Ron and I want you all to stay safe.